Hi guys, this is Haley Ratchford, and for my unit plan, I'm going to be using the standard Label the States in each of the 5 regions of the United States, and it's a 3rd grade standard, and I just thought that even though it's a pretty simple one, it will take a long time because there are 50 states and 5 regions you have to cover and they have to memorize. So I thought it was really important that I kind of plan out 10 days for this. So as far as my key for my daily plans and differentiation, the objective is going to be in yellow, assessment green, any kind of differentiation for any learner is going to be in pink. Specifically, ELL differentiation is going to be in orange, tech and art integration is going to be in blue, and then finally Bloom's taxonomy is going to be in red. So before we get started, I'm going to have them do a pre-assessment the day before, and it's going to be an exit ticket, and they're going to have 5 columns, and then they're going to label each of the 5 regions on them, and then they're going to list as many states that they can that are in each region that they know of so far. It just kind of gives me kind of knowledge of where their starting point is for it, and then I'm also going to be asking them to fill out a blank compass just to make sure that they know where the directions are. So for day 1, we're not going to be focusing on any states. It's just going to be specifically regions and where they are. So there's some vocabulary right here: region, compass, and direction. And then I'm going to be dividing the students into groups based on kind of how they did and how they seem to understand what we were going to be doing based off of the pre-assessment with the columns from the day before. And so we're going to be using Elmo, and it's going to help them see and identify the 5 regions. And those are going to be the Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, Southwest, and West. The Midwest is going to be hardest for them to understand, which is something I realized, just because Midwest, when it's in the middle of the state, has the word West in it, tends to be confusing. So I will be bringing up the St. Louis Arch and just talk about how it's the gateway to the West and why that is. And then that'll help them kind of better understand why you're calling something that's in the middle of the state Midwest. So each group that's paired together is going to be getting a set of flashcards of the regions, and they're going to be kind of going over them and practicing them before, after that, they're going to be looking at an Elmo, and they're going to be getting a handout of the US map, and then themselves are going to be tracing it, and that's just kind of going to be the assessment for the end of the day, just so I can see how well the lesson went for the day. And then with differentiating that, those groupings are going to be based on that. And then for ELLs, I'm going to answer any questions they have, make sure they have that Spanish to English dictionary, and then I'm going to make sure that they have a lot of images that they're going to get to see throughout the whole unit and just kind of prep those. So days 2 through 6 are going to look very similar because their objective is going to be almost identical. It's just that this is going to be different every single day, whether it be Southeast, Southwest, Northeast, they're all going to be different. And then not only are they going to be recalling the regions, but they're also going to be recalling all the other states that they learned about. So on day 6, it's going to say students will be able to name and locate the western states of the United States, and then also recall the 5 regions: Southeast, Northeast, etc. And then these are going to be the states that they're working with, which are all going to be listed. And then this is going to be something that I give them at every lesson, and it's going to be a map of that region, and then it's going to have a word bank with all the states in it so they get access to the correctly spelled states. So there'll be always a warm-up of some sort. So for day 2, it's going to be a post-it note, and it's going to be going over labeling the regions that they learned yesterday, and then we're going to be going over it together as on the Elmo. And then every day it might kind of differ a little bit, but it's always going to be recalling what they learned the day before and then what they learned in previous days. So then like on day 5, for example, it'd be the 3 regions that they learned so far, and then the states within them, and then just kind of building on that. And then after that, it's going to be the exposure to the new states that they learned. So like for today's example, this is going to be the new information, then they'll see that next. And then after that, they're going to be put into groups based on how they did on the kind of exit ticket or the last activity that we did from the previous day. And it's kind of how well they did. And then with the students who didn't do well, they're all grouped together. So then I, as the teacher, will be able to work with them one-on-one. When they are in those groups, they're going to be discussing the similarities of the states. This isn't really something that is in the standard, but it will help them remember what states are in each region because of the similarities. For example, everyone in the Southeast, there's some people with Southern accents, or they like the Southeastern Conference football, and they're just kind of going to be discussing that, whether it be food or landmarks, accents, weather, anything that's going to help them be able to remember what states are in each region they're going to be discussing. And then that group that did have a hard time, I'll be coming around and we're going to be discussing what maybe they've been having problems with and then review that a little bit so they get a little extra practice with the things that they missed. And then at the end of the day, the students will take a Kahoot quiz, and it's going to cover all the states that we covered today, and then there'll be a couple questions that are kind of randomly in there about the previous material that we learned about regions or the other states we learned from previous days, and that will be in there too, just to make sure that they don't forget anything, because that summative assessment at the end will be having all 50 states and all 5 regions in there, so it's a lot to remember. As far as differentiation every day, so once again, the students who do need more attention, they're going to be getting grouped together so they can work with me specifically and get that extra time that they might need. And then ELL students will have access to Spanish-English dictionaries, and then I'll also give them a handout that translates the north, south, east, and west to Spanish to English, along with images of the directions in case they just kind of won't need to see an image of it. And then also, they're going to have a bilingual student in the class, and if they need help or need anything cleared up, if they're in that early or pre-production stages, I'm going to get them to kind of clarify anything. And then all of this is going to apply throughout the entirety of the unit. So I scrolled down to day 7 because days 2 through 6 are so similar. They're just focusing in on a specific region and the states within it. So the objective for day 7 after they learned all that is that they're going to be able to correctly spell and locate the 50 states and then identify the region that each state belongs to. This is all really important because if you can't correctly spell a state that you're going to be labeling, then what's the point? And then also not only that, but they need to know what region it's in. It's just kind of important, and it's something that is going to be more helpful in their real world life. And then that's going to be comprehension and knowledge for Bloom's. And then for the warm-up, they're going to be put into groups of 5. Each person is going to be in charge of a region, and then they're going to have to locate and label the states within their assigned region. And then when someone in that group finishes first, they can help one of their teammates finish the region that they're working on. After that, they're going to take out their laptops and they're going to do a Kahoot quiz that focuses on spelling the states and the regions. So an example question would be, Mississippi, and then these would be the options for them. And obviously there's only one correct answer, which would be this one. So it's just making sure they know how to spell each one. And then also I'm going to give students a blank map, and this will be a practice just to make sure that they know what to expect when I do give them that summative assessment. And it's going to be 25 minutes for them to fill out the entire map. And it's also, they're going to be getting points for if it's spelled correctly. So I'm going to put the timer on the Elmo so they can see, and then they're going to grade it themselves out of 110. So it's 55, 55 things to label. They get a point if they spell it correctly, and then they get another point if they locate it correctly. So that's why it's 110. And then when they finish that and then they see their score, they're going to turn that into me, and then they're also going to do a reflection and attach it. And that reflection is going to talk about maybe why they struggled more with spelling or locating the states, and which ones they thought were easier and why those might have been easier, and then maybe why other states would have been harder for them. Like Idaho was always something that I challenged with because I don't know anything about Idaho and it's far away, and it's not something that I have had any kind of exposure to, so maybe they would kind of infer that in their reflection, and then they would attach that to me and hit it to me. And then as far as differentiation, it is kind of the same thing. They're going to have access to those dictionaries. We're going to have a bilingual student at hand. But then instead of the journal reflection for those early emergent students, or maybe the pre-production, they're just going to circle in red what they have trouble with in the areas that I have trouble with, and then the areas they find easy, they're going to circle in green. So I still get to communicate with kind of they're having trouble with, and then I get to understand what I need to review with them more. Day 8 has 2 objectives. One of them talks more about spelling and locating the states, and then the other is using their understanding of the locations to determine what states border each other, whether it be in their same region or not. So their warm-up for this is I'm going to be making a Jeopardy game for the students to play together in 2 teams. The teams will be equally divided, whether it be high achieving, on level below, ELL, IEP, what have you. So they'll be equally kind of at a equal playing field, and then just kind of to make it a little fun, and then an example question for it would be like, what 3 states border California, and then they can work together to answer the question, and it's more a little higher level thinking, even though the standard doesn't necessarily call for that. And then this game will also give me a clue of how well they understand the content, which is super important moving forward since this summative assessment is in 2 days. I will then separate the students into one of these 4 categories. I'll label them as either a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then 1 and 2s will work together in pairs, and 3 and 4s will work together in pairs. So students classified as 3 will be paired together with a 4, and together they will work on locating and correctly labeling states and regions on a map. Number 3, who struggles in spelling, will be the one labeling each state, so they'll have to work on its spelling. And then number 4, who struggles with locating, is going to be the ones having to locate. Students classified as a 1 or 2 don't have as much trouble currently. There's just something that they need a little bit more practice on. So they're going to be working with a partner who has the opposite strength that they do, and they're going to be doing flashcards together to identify the states and regions, and then they're going to have to spell it out verbally. So then they can kind of help each other do that. Then I will project a blank map of the US on a whiteboard, and then the students will have the opportunity to shade in the states or regions that they want to review again with me before the summative assessment in 2 days. So I will take a picture of that, and then I'll see what they shaded, and then I'll make a Kahoot based on what they want to review for the next day. So the objective for day 9, the day before the summative assessment, is that students will be able to correctly label the states in each of the 5 regions of the US. And then that's just going to be knowledge, and that's kind of almost explicitly exactly what the standard is asking you to do. So I do really want them to just kind of really prepare for that, because that's what they need to know going into the summative assessment. That's what I'm going to be testing them for. That's what I'm going to be looking for. So for their warm-up, they're going to be doing a Kahoot quiz that has stuff in it that relates to that shaded area they shaded in, the day before that they said they had trouble in. So that's what I made the quiz for, and hopefully since they'll get exposure to that, they're not going to have much confusion over any of those areas again. And then we're going to go over each answer as a class, just kind of to more emphasize which states are where, which regions are where, and what states are within each region. Then the students are going to be given a blank map of the US, and they'll label and locate states and regions independently, and then they're going to eventually turn those into me almost as a practice assessment. And then I'm going to be walking around and working with any students who I see maybe having some trouble, and then I'm also going to be checking in on those ELLs just to make sure they do understand what I'm going to be expecting them to be doing. And then as they finish, I will be giving them an outline of the summative assessment for tomorrow, because it is a little bit different from what they've been doing. So I'm going to give them a blank map so they can start planning the travel route part of their assessment that they're going to be doing for the following day. I'm going to ask the students as they leave to turn in a post-it note with the numbers 1 through 5 telling me how confident they are about the summative assessment tomorrow, just to make sure in case I need to give any extra prep time or study time before the summative assessment that I can plan on doing that. Summative assessment day, day 10. So students will be able to correctly label the states in each of the 5 regions of the United States and prove they know what states border each other on the map of the US. So this is going to be knowledge and comprehension. So they're going to be doing a quick review with me that are going to be kind of more focused on the areas that they had trouble with filling the map that they did for the practice the day before. Since I will be grading all of them, looking at them, that's kind of where I'll get the information to get questions on. And then before they start their actual summative assessment, I'm going to ask them to do the reflection in their journal that answers some of these questions. They're going to be rating a 1 through 5 on these questions right here. And it's more just like about participation. Are you really engaged? So then maybe if they do struggle with summative assessment, this will kind of answer why. If they weren't really trying, maybe they weren't being a good team player for some of the activities. And then as far as actually answering questions, they're going to be explaining how they think they can improve their understanding of the content, and then how they think they could apply the knowledge of the standard to their own life. And then for ELL students for this, I would verbally do this reflection with them, and then maybe with another bilingual if we really didn't need to translate, but I would really just kind of want to get some verbal feedback from them. And then I would tell students they have 5 minutes to just study before that summative assessment. So I will give students directions on what the summative assessment is going to be. So basically their goal is to write an article about traveling through the 5 regions of the US as if they were doing a road trip. They're a travel writer and they're writing an article. The audience is going to be potential travelers who are going to read the article and then figure out, oh, this is definitely the right route to take. So you're going to need to explain to the readers how you drove through each state within the region, and then there's going to be a map with arrows showing the states that you went through, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, from with the first state that they chose all the way to the end, and just kind of to see how they did that. And that's going to show them the knowledge that they know about, oh, this state's next to this state, so I'm going to travel to this state next, since they will be labeling those states as well. So they're going to be giving me that article that covers how they drove to the states, and then it's going to show also a list of the states that they did in order, so then I can see, oh, they know that this state is next to this state, and this is where this state is explicitly. And then, so then finally, as far as differentiating this, so the students who are ELLs or they have that IEP or 504 plan, they're going to have extra time if needed